crash course video on the calculus controversy between Sir Isaac Newton and Gottfried Leibniz over who invented calculus and the accompanying conflict. Sir Isaac Newton was born in England 1642 and was a mathematician and physicist famous to this present day for his numerous discoveries pertaining to mathematics, physics, and optics, among others. His counterpart, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, was born 4 years after Newton in Germany and delved into many subjects including mathematics, philosophy, and politics. So how did these two men's calculus differ from each other? Well, Newton described his form of calculus as the method of fluxions, thinking of everything in terms of motion of tangents. He called the differential of x the moment of x with the notation you see here, which quantified the change in x over an infinitely small time period. Newton first derived this method in 1666, but his work wasn't published until 27 years later in 1693, although he referenced his work in correspondence between them. So why would Newton wait so long to publish his findings? Well, Cosmos fans know that Newton was in a previous and eerily similar dispute with Robert Hooke, then the president of the Royal Society of London, who stole credit for Newton's theory of light. This feud reinforced the fear Newton had of scrutiny towards his work, wanting anything he published to be of utmost accuracy and easily defensible. Newton was also definitely reluctant to publish anything during Robert Hooke's lifetime. In contrast, Leibniz viewed everything as sums and differences, and was able to find the area under a curve for what we now know as integration. In fact, we can credit Leibniz for the notation many introductory calculus students learn today, including the integration symbol s, Latin for summa, and d for derivation, in Latin differentia. Leibniz invents his calculus in 1674, long after Newton derives his version, but Leibniz is able to publish it before Newton in 1684. So the calculus controversy did not spark instantaneously after the publication of both men's work. The two developed a friendship and even made some subtle acknowledgments to each other's work as independent and different from their own. But eventually in 1700, other mathematicians accused either Leibniz or Newton of plagiarizing the other, although the two did not originally get involved in the dispute. But eventually Leibniz had had enough, and filed a complaint to the Royal Society about someone else accusing him of plagiarizing Newton. The Royal Society conducts their own investigation. But here's the catch. The president of the Royal Society, after Robert Hooke's death, was Sir Isaac Newton. So historians assume that Newton was secretly sour about not getting full credit for the invention of calculus. Newton would go on to write the entire report on the investigation by himself, and for these reasons it is argued that the report was a total farce. The report made many accusations against Leibniz that served more as assumptions of what Leibniz did without actually providing direct evidence to support these arguments. Being the president of the Royal Society and the author of one of the greatest scientific books ever in the Principia, Newton was a rock star. He used his incredible sway and influence to run a smear campaign against Leibniz through the Royal Society. Leibniz, along with fellow mathematician Johann Bernoulli, countered Newton's campaign by attacking his personal character, religion, and even his theory of gravity, thus beginning a nasty dispute that continued long after both their deaths. So in order to prove that Leibniz plagiarized, you would have to show that he saw enough of Newton's work towards his derivation of calculus before 1675 to either steal it altogether or finish it up and claim it entirely. Among the list of possible evidence against Leibniz was that he has been the recipient of some of Newton's correspondence letters I mentioned earlier, although these letters were probably obscure allusions not detailed enough to give it away to Leibniz. Unfortunately for Leibniz, we know Newton began developing his calculus as early as 1666, so scholars believe that the burden of proof lies only with Leibniz. It certainly helps him that the motivation behind deriving these calculuses were different for both Newton and himself. So it's amazing to think that the history of mathematics could have a story fit for a Hollywood drama. But you might be wondering, why is this dispute important? Well, the consequences of this dispute were surprisingly staggering. Long after both their deaths, the mathematics community was divided between who believed deserved credit for calculus. Since the Royal Society was based in London, England sided with Newton and used his method of fluxions. But fluxions were actually an inefficient and overly complex way to approach calculus. England's mathematical, and one assumes scientific progress, was severely hampered by this notation when comparing it to the rest of continental Europe, who used Leibniz's more efficient method and thus got more out of calculus. England would not fully acknowledge Leibniz's calculus for another 120 years. So, who invented modern calculus? Historians believe that both men derived calculus independently from each other without evidence to the contrary. Who would have known that the history of mathematics would be shrouded in such drama and mystery?